Welcome to Practice Tip Thursday, your weekly dose of insider tips and tricks to help you play smarter, not harder. Whether you're mastering scales, perfecting technique, or just looking for that extra edge, we've got the expert advice to take your practice sessions to the next level. Stay tuned as we unlock new ways to improve your playing each week.
All right, everyone, it is Thursday, so let's talk about one of the most important parts of being a musician, practice. Yes, the dreaded P word. And if you've been tuning in the last couple weeks, every week we've had some practice strategies to kind of help you as a musician practice your music a little bit more efficiently and effectively. It's easy just to play through the beginning to the end, but, your real improvement comes from having a strategy. And today I'm going to share 5 effective strategies to help you get the most out of your time with your instrument, okay? So number 1 is you want to make sure that you set a goal, okay? Before you start, think about what you want to achieve in this session. Is it mastering 1 measure, 2 measures, a tricky passage? Do you want to improve your tone? Or are you nailing down dynamics? In my band, in the wind ensemble here at Bonnet, one of the things that we're working on in our Veterans Day piece is the dynamics aspect and differentiating between the levels and volumes and reading around the notes, as I call it. But having a clear goal will make practice more focused and more rewarding. And I would highly suggest writing that goal down somewhere. It could be on your on a sheet of paper, on your music, on your iPad or iPhone, something. So you have a goal set up for you each of your practice sessions, and that way you know exactly what you're trying to achieve. Strategy number 2, and we've talked about this a little bit, but if you're new and this is your first episode of Practice Tip Thursday, slow it down. Okay, most people like to play things at performance speed and just kind of get through it just to say that they got through it. However, if you play it slower and slowing it down, it really allows you to hear and play every note, feel every beat, and try to work out any errors. You're trying to play it, and last week we talked about playing it 3 times in a row perfectly. So you're really trying to play it really correct from the first get-go. So slowing it down to a tempo where you can get every single note. And then you start slowly, gradually speeding it up as you become more comfortable with the piece or the section of music. I always tell students, do this when you're practicing. Your goal shouldn't be the entire piece. It should always be a part of it, whether it's, half of a piece, a third of a piece. But I would very rarely recommend that a student practice the entire piece, because then you're just running through it. You're just doing run-throughs, and you're not really working on anything. So slow the tempo down. It's okay, and keep it slow for a while until you're super comfortable. Then, like I said, start gradually speeding it up. The number 3, break it down. Okay, if you're working on a challenging piece, break it into small sections. Maybe just a few measures. As an example, I tell my students when we're learning region music, when I give it to them in August when we get to school, just do 1 to 2 measures a day. That's it. 1 to 2 measures a day, and within probably a week or 2, you'd have the entire etude learned, because our etudes at junior high are only 16 to 20, 24 measures. So by doing only 1 or 2 measures a day, you can get it done in relatively quick time. And then, day 1, you learn measures 1 and 2. Day 2, you review measures 1 and 2 and do measures 3 and 4, or if you're only doing 1 measure at a time or whatever. So break it down. You can also practice each part separately and put them back together like your building blocks. I always use the macro, micro, macro thought process. So like if I'm going to work on a piece of music and I'm going to work on the first 16 measures, okay, I'll play the first 16 measures, see how that sounds, and then I'll go in within those 16 measures and work on the specific things that I need to work on, whether it be tempo, whether it be tone, dynamics, notes, rhythms, whatever, and then go back out macro and run it again when I'm done to see if putting the pieces together, does it sound better than it did the first time that I played it? And, it doesn't always happen, but more often than not, it'll be better the second time. Okay. Strategy number 4 is a big one for really making sure everything is really good. Using a metronome, and the amount of time that junior high band directors spend telling students to use a metronome and they don't do it is baffling. Okay, that little device is your best friend because it's never wrong. It will be truthful to you. It never speeds up, it never slows down, it doesn't change. When you set it on a number, it stays there until you tell it not to. That really helps you keep a steady beat. It keeps you honest as a musician, and it's super important in building and essential for building rhythms and building timing throughout the piece. Okay. But that kind of goes along with the one we previously talked about, starting it slow. You can start a metronome at slow, start it at 60. And then if the piece goes 100, cool. That's the performance tempo. Don't start the metronome at 100, start it at 60. And then 70, then 80, 90, 100, or do it in 5-beat increments, 60, 65, 70, and on and on. But you should always have a good metronome playing in the background, so you get very, very steady time and steady rhythms. And as a junior high director, every single year, I try to impart that wisdom on students, and even our masterclass teachers that we have. We'll say the same thing to them, and I'm like, yeah, that you're preaching to the choir. Okay, I tell them all the time, use a metronome whenever you practice. We use a metronome in the band hall. Like, if we use a metronome in the band hall, you probably need to use one too when you're practicing on your own. And so using a metronome is that's essential. Okay, that's a very, very important one. And then the last one we're going to talk about. Some people probably won't like this just because it's awkward for them. But you're not hearing your own voice. But the strategy number 5 is recording yourself. Okay. Recording yourself is obviously a really good way to see how well you really sound and listen to how well you really sound. When you listen back, you notice things that you might have missed while playing because you're so engrossed in playing the music that you may miss things like tone, rhythm, phrasing, and you can start to be kind of like your own teacher and write things and jot things down like, man, I really played this well, but I didn't do this right. My goal was to work on dynamics, let's say, but I couldn't tell if I was doing dynamics in my recording. And if you can't tell that you're doing dynamics in your recording, if that's what you're working on, then that means you're not being very convincing enough. And you have to be super convincing to the audience that you know what it is that you're doing. And if you're trying to do musicality stuff like crescendoing, decrescendoing, lifting notes, playing staccato, all that kind of stuff, you have to really make sure that you are super convincing to those who are listening to you, whether it's you're like a band director or another music director or a judge or the audience. And so really make sure that when you like find something that's good enough to record yourself. And there are apps out there. There's one on, let me see what it's called it's on my phone, and I have it on my phone and on my iPad. It's called Dolby On, DOLBY, like Dolby Digital On. And that's a good audio app. It also will do video, but it will do audio too. That's a good app to have so you can record yourself and listen back and then try to like decipher what you are doing well and what you still need to work on going into your next practice session or your next day in band class, okay, or choir class or whatever. And I think especially you'll notice, like for me, whenever I record myself playing and then I listen back to it, I'm really like, I feel like I really have a good grasp of the rhythm and notes. So I'm really listening on the tone and how I'm phrasing things. And do I emit those emotions and those feelings? Do I do the things around the notes to make it interesting, to make the music that I'm playing interesting, or do I just play very steady? Okay. So just remember that practice isn't about the time that how much time your instrument to face. Okay. Or if you're a voice choir person, how much you're singing. It's about how you use that time. Not about, again, I'll say that again. Practice is not just about the time, how much time you're spending. It's about how you use that time. Using that time wisely will yield better results faster than if you just do it and like, oh, well, I did it. I practiced for 30 minutes. But did you really work on stuff? Or did you just run through things for 30 minutes and go, yep, check that box off my life and move on? So, next time you pick up your instrument or you're gonna practice singing something, try these strategies out. And like I said, every Thursday I try to put out a short video, and by short I mean this one's already at like 10 and a half minutes. A short video about some strategies. I have, I think, 2 other ones that you can go and look at and listen to. But really try to like do something. After you listen to this, go figure out something that you're playing, whether it's in class or for yourself or whatever, and really try to see if you can't make it better by doing some of these strategies. Okay, so set a goal. Slow it down. Use a metronome. Slow it down. Break it down. Okay. Like I said, macro, micro, macro, the whole section, like 16 measures, then dive into those 16, fix a bunch of small sections within that, and then put it back together like you're building blocks, and then record yourself doing it and see what happens, and see if you can't start to become your own teacher and start to notice some tendencies in while you play. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for our Practice Tip Thursday. Join us each week when we try to give you some sort of wisdom to make your life a little bit easier, and that way when you practice, it's a little bit more efficient and effective, because all we're trying to do is make better musicians here. All right? Well, all right, and we'll see you next week. Peace.